Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To search for other podcasts you might like, click bbc.co.uk/5live, where you'll also find our terms of use.
Good morning. This is Victoria, Derbyshire on BBC Radio 5 Live and the BBC News Channel. And this morning, with a year to go before Scotland gets to vote on whether or not to go it alone as an independent country, we are live in Glasgow. Welcome, everybody. And we are in the old Victorian fruit market, built originally in 1841 in the Merchant City quarter of Glasgow. It still has the original greengrocer signs and the ironmongery signs around the balcony here, and it is an absolutely stunning building. In 12 months' time, people living here will be asked the referendum question, should Scotland be an independent country? What do you think?
Hi, I'm Natalie. I work in the third sector as a policy advisor and I'm from Fife. We have a unique opportunity going forward to decide what kind of country we want to have. It's very rare that people in the world have this opportunity to restate our values and how we want to go forward as a country together to decide how we want to do it. So I think this is very important on both sides, that we have a debate which is framed in positivity and in answers for people that are undecided in the audience.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Harriet. I'm from South Wales and I'm studying in Edinburgh. And I'll be voting no because I hate the division between the north-south way, as if the north, Scotland, are all salt-of-the-earth people and everyone down south is horrifically right-wing and scum. Well, I think that's offensive because, you know what, we fought for devolution just like Scotland and we have legitimate problems with Westminster as well. So don't just walk away from those problems, stay and fight those problems, campaign against those problems to make Britain a better democracy, because that's what we in Wales want to do as well.
Okay. Hello, sir. Hi.
Hi, I'm David. I'm from the northeast of England, where I teach in a university.
And you're sitting in the undecided section.
I'm in the undecided, and I do have a vote, because I crossed the border 3 miles into Scotland to get a big garden.
Okay. Lucky you.
I'm undecided because it depends on what kind of Scotland it would be.
Exactly.
As I say, I'm half Irish. I've seen what happened to the Republic of Ireland, and that model, I think, failed. And that was one of the models that was being proposed for Scotland. If you got somewhere like Denmark, like a Scandinavian social democracy, what Commonwealth are campaigning for, that would be a very good thing. But there still remains the question, how will the economy support it?
And we're definitely going to talk about the economy this morning, obviously. Hello.
Hi, I'm Josh from Glasgow. I'm absolutely terrified of what's going to happen if we don't vote for independence. I truly don't know what's going to happen in the future. All I can do is tell you what's happened in the past. We had the opportunity in 1979. We were terrified out of it. And within 10 years, our steel industry, our mining industry, every industry within Scotland was destroyed by Thatcher. I don't want that to happen again.
I'm Austin, I'm 18 and I'm still in school, and I have feelings about not wanting to be independent, but I'm still unsure because I don't know much about what these guys are campaigning for. So that's why I'm sitting in
And
this
by
section.
these guys, you mean the people who want
Yes
independence?
Party, yeah.
Yeah, OK. And we'll hopefully answer that this morning. Hello. Hi.
I'm Jim from Glasgow. I believe passionately in the union. I think that we're inexorably linked to the rest of the UK. I'm appalled at the prospect, really appalled about the prospect of independence and the breakup. We have got far too much in common. We're an island, basically. Scotland's joined to the rest of Britain. Separating just makes absolutely no sense.
OK, thank you for the moment. You can also watch us via the 5 Live website, by the way, and the red button. So would a newly independent Scotland keep the pound, join the euro, have a completely new currency? Would it want to keep nuclear weapons on its soil? If Scotland... If that's a lot of no's from the yes camp. If Scotland does vote for independence, what will the rest of the UK be called? What happens to the Union flag? Will Scotland be better off economically on its own or staying as part of the UK? And what about the rest of the UK? What's best economically for England, Wales and Northern Ireland? What would an independent Scotland look and feel like? The answers to those questions might just help people decide how to vote. Our lovely audience of around 200 people this morning from right across the UK is split into 3 sections this morning. Those that told us at the moment they want independence for Scotland. Those that told us they want the UK to stay as the UK. And those who are undecided and want more information before they can make up their mind. As our audience listen to and question the Yes Scotland campaign and the Better Together campaign, and hopefully get satisfactory answers, we've invited them to move to a different section, if they want to, that perhaps better reflects their changed point of view. A giant version of musical chairs, but without the music. Clearly, there is... Stop laughing, Professor John Curtis. Clearly, there is no scientific basis to this at all. But any movement of people might tell us something. And if nobody moves, that will be instructive as well. At the moment, I can tell you that there are 36% of people sitting in the yes camp, 36% of people sitting in the no camp, and in the don't knows, in the undecideds, we have 27%. In the actual referendum on September the 18th, 2014, you won't get a say if you live outside Scotland. Clearly, whatever Scotland decides will affect people living in the rest of the UK too. So that's why we invited people living in England, Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland as well. If you want to text us, please do. It's 85058, or you can tweet us at BBC 5 Live using the hashtag 5LiveDebate. Let's introduce some more guests. Fiona Hislop is with us, an SNP member of the Scottish Parliament and is Cabinet Secretary for External Affairs. She's in favour of independence. Good morning to you.
Good morning. And
also from the Yes Scotland campaign, Elaine C. Smith, an actress best known for playing Mary Nesbitt in the TV comedy Rab C. Nesbitt. Elaine, welcome.
Thank you.
Anna Sawar is the Labour MP for Glasgow Central, Deputy Leader of Scottish Labour. We have a mixture of applause and hisses. He's the referendum coordinator. He's from the Better Together campaign. Alan Savage is from the Better Together campaign too. He's a businessman from the Orion Group, which specialises in recruitment in the engineering industry. Fiona Hislop, give us your vision, your dream. What sort of Scotland do you want to see in the future?
Well, the fundamental point is that the best decisions about Scotland, they're best made by the people who live in Scotland, who care about Scotland, who work in Scotland, and have that at the heart. And it's basic democracy. Some of your listeners across the UK might not be aware that we have only one Tory MP in the whole of Scotland, yet we still get David Cameron, who wants to privatise the Royal Mail. We still get the bedroom tax, where the majority of MPs vote against that. So in terms of our positive vision of what we want, I want to see a fairer Scotland. I want to
Why would independence bring fairness?
Well, if you look at the current situation, the United Kingdom, and we've got to compare what we have just now, we've also got to compare what would happen under the United Kingdom in the future. The United Kingdom is one of the most unequal societies in the whole
Why
of the
would
OECD.
independence make Scotland fairer?
Because what we can do is we can bring in policies that would help develop policies for our families. Childcare, for example, is held back because of the powers that are still held by Westminster. Economic growth,
independence
for example,
is for life, not just for one political term.
Absolutely.
So you can't guarantee what governments would be in the future.
Well,
and they may bring in something which you might perceive to be unfair.
And that happens in the United Kingdom all the time. We get governments that we don't vote for, and who knows what will happen in the UK. But it's the underlying economic strength of Scotland. Today we've seen approval for one of the biggest and renewable tidal energy focuses in the future in plants. And that gives economic wealth for Scotland in the new industries, in life sciences, and in renewable industries.
You want to keep the pound and the Queen and NATO and being part of the EU. Why do you say that would be true independence?
True independence is when people decide the policies and the governments that they vote for. Currently, we do not get governments that we vote for. We need to make sure that decisions are made for the people of Scotland, by the people of Scotland. And it's a choice of two futures, and independence is a positive, progressive choice for the people of Scotland.
Anna Sawar, clearly you have a different vision for the future of Scotland. What's your vision?
Well, I'm here to support an idea that I think is bigger than independence, and that's the pooling and sharing of resources right across the UK for the benefit of people right across the UK.
Is this a vision?
Absolutely, because what we have at the moment is, and I believe in a positive, principled and passionate case for the UK, and I think it's right for us politically, economically, socially and emotionally.
What's your heart telling you? Give me some emotion. What are you feeling about it?
I'll tell you what I mean by that is what this referendum's not about. It's not about whether we love our country or not, because every single person in this room loves Scotland. It's not about whether we like the Tories, because most people in this room dislike the Tories. What it is about is what's best for us here in Scotland. And I think Scotland can be a passionate voice, a loud voice, but we speak louder and more strongly as part of the UK, stronger in the G8, stronger in the G20, stronger in the UN, stronger in the EU. And we get a democratic benefit here in the UK because we have a strong Scottish Parliament working within the United Kingdom.
We've got some people calling out. We've got some people calling out. Do you wait for a microphone to get to you and then we can hear you? Elaine C. Smith, what's the case for independence?
The reason I've been supporting it, this has not been something that I've just woken up one morning thinking, I think, I'll vote for independence today. I think like many, many people, this has been something that has been a long, long journey to get to. I actually don't think that the people on the no side and the people on the yes side are that far apart. Everyone in this room, and the don't knows as well, want this place to be better. And where we differ is in how we think we can deliver that. And my belief in independence is that I no longer believe that the British state and the corrupt institutions like Westminster, like the judiciary, like, as we've witnessed with the BBC, will deliver for the people of this country and beyond. And I'm talking about Wales. And there is never in anything I've been involved in ever mentioned the fact that people in Wales do not deserve exactly the same chances as people here. It's not that we are better. It is that we are thinking of a different way, a different system of running things that I personally no longer believe Westminster will ever deliver, as it veers more and more to the right and the neoliberal Conservatives are in control. We are never going to achieve the type of country that people in Scotland vote for. Okay. And I actually think it will be to the benefit of the rest of the UK when they see the type of model that Scotland can achieve.
Alan Savage. Alan Savage is from the Better Together campaign. What's the case for Scotland remaining part of the UK in your view?
I've been invited to be on this in this programme because I'm a businessman that doesn't want separation. My business turns over £400 million, of which £200 million comes from overseas. And of the £200 million that's generated in the UK, about half comes from the rest of the UK and half from Scotland. I think that doing business in a Scottish setup that's brand new, that as of yet we don't know the format of it. We've not seen the white paper, we've not seen the detail, we don't know what the embassy structure is, we don't know what the reciprocal tax arrangements are, is going to be very, very difficult. And 3 to 6 months in a business could be a disaster across the globe for us if politicians get it wrong. So I think that we would be better remaining as we are in a strong 300-year-old structure.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, my name's Valerie and I'm from Glasgow. I'd just like to say on something Fiona Hislop and I think Elaine C. Smith said, that we're talking about how, we need to be independent because we didn't vote for the Tory party in government and how there's only one MP in David Mundell. I would just like to say I'm kind of sick of talking about party politics. I think Scottish independence needs to be determined on whether it actually will be better for Scotland, not whether, we didn't vote for the Tory government but they're in power, because honestly when I get to voting age I wouldn't personally vote for the SNP because I'm not a national supporter, but you guys are in government now and that's just the way of life. Someone's always going to be unhappy whether we like it or not, and I feel independence should be talked about whether it's okay.
Go ahead.
I think we've established that, but I think that it needs to be talked about whether economically we'd be better off,
What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of an independent Scotland?
No, I'm not. A little bit, yes. But I think that...
And what is it that you're fearful of?
Just that it would just get worse because,
What would get worse?
Just the economy, and it would just become... Hear her out. Nobody knows what the future holds. You can't say that an independent Scotland things would be better, and you can't say that you can't say that it'd be better in a union. I just personally think we would be better in a union.
Okay, over here. Just one sec. That is Hello, sorry, do introduce yourself. Hi,
I'm Saffron Dixon and I'm from Glasgow and I'm 15.
And you're in the yes camp and you won't get a vote. Is your household...
No, I will get a vote.
Sure.
I'll be 16, yeah.
You'll be... right, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
So is our colleague over here right when she says, actually, no one knows?
No.
You know, do you?
No, I don't. Of course, nobody knows, but nobody knows where we're going to be in 4 years' time. Nobody knows when we're going to be in the next election. Nobody knows when the next economic crisis is going to be. Nobody knows anything in the world. How can we ever base anything on not knowing? That's absolutely ridiculous. We don't live in a country where we have equal rights, we have equal powers. We don't want supremacy. We want equality. That's what we want. Westminster bakes the Empire biscuit, and we put the jelly tot on top. And we're supposed to be completely ecstatic about having that little bit of power, but we won't be silenced by your ideology of don't fix it if it's not broken, because it is for us.
Okay. Yes, Anna Sala. I mean, you can hear the passion there. It's broken for us, says our 16-year-old.
I respect the passion that people have for independence, but what I want to say is, look, there's one thing heckling and shouting down a politician, that's fine, that comes with the territory. But there are people here who are giving their genuine opinions and beliefs, and shouting them down, laughing and booing and hissing at them, I don't think says much about the kind of Scotland. The interesting point is this: there are those in the nationalist camp that have supported independence even when we had a UK welfare state being created. We have those in the nationalist camp who were supporting independence when we had a UK NHS being created, or when we had the UK national minimum wage, or across the UK when we were having child poverty and pension poverty.
The UK is privatising the health service, and we are not.
people's desire and wish
choice.
for independence if that's their view, but they should also respect the debate and the honesty of people saying, I actually believe we're better off as part of the UK
Come back to you in a minute, Fiona Hislop. Hello, have you made up your mind yet?
Not quite yet.
Just checking.
With such problems going on in the rest of the world, in places such as Syria, Afghanistan, these places, I want to know what's going to happen to the armed forces throughout Britain if Scotland becomes independent.
Okay. Well, we can deal with that now. We're certainly going to talk about it later. But Fiona Hislop, why don't you answer our young friend over here?
Well, there'll be certainty of the armed forces and the personnel in particular. I think one of the big problems we've seen over recent years is the decimation of a considerable amount of our armed forces in terms of the personnel in Scotland. And we've also seen that in terms of particularly the RAF and some of the coverage there. Now, Scotland will need particularly a strong air cover in terms of our interest in the Atlantic, in the interest in the high Arctic. So we'd be able to actually shape and fashion armed forces in the needs of Scotland in particular. But we live in an interdependent world, and that's why so many things will continue. So many things in terms of our association must and will continue. But we will make the decisions. We will not go into illegal wars without the consent of the people of Scotland. And in terms of nuclear weapons, I'd much rather spend money on the personnel, the armed forces personnel and their families and our veterans, rather than on weapons of mass destruction and nuclear weapons. And they're the decisions and they're the choices that we can make.
And we'll certainly talk about nuclear weapons.
And that's the certainty we'll give in terms of our commitment to armed forces personnel in particular, and a future career in Scotland.
And we'll certainly talk about nuclear weapons a little later and where they might be based, if not in Faslane and Coolport. Yes, hello.
I'm Eddie Bone. I'm an Englishman. I actually support the Parliament for England. I campaign for it. One of the things I'd like to... Two questions, please, if I can. One to the yes side. Independence is growing in England. There's actually up to 39% of the people on surveys want independence for England. So you are looking at complete separation of the two nations at that point. So you've got to actually work out exactly what's going to happen with the armed forces, because it is going to be complete separation. For the unionist side, what needs to happen surely is a rebalancing of the nations in the UK, and the only way you can rebalance that is a Parliament for England, a federal system for England that actually recognises the need for the people of England to have a democratic voice.
OK, well, let's have some conversations from the yes and the no. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Michael Fisher. I'm actually the chairman of UKIP Glasgow. Well, actually, Bearsden is where I'm based. I'm also the newly appointed defence spokesman. When I look at what's going on at the moment, all I see is division happening. And the Yes campaign is very happy to hit the wedge very firmly on the head. That's the popularity that they're gaining on. And when we look at the defence situation, I really am quite amazed The Scottish National Party has tried to engage with NATO, for example. It doesn't have a policy on defence, but it professes that it knows better than every NATO member what security is all about. The SNP, the separatists, are quite happy to gamble with the future of the defence of Scotland and the rest of the UK, while they have no policy whatsoever that is fixed, professed, agreed with the member states of NATO and our allies.
OK. Do you want to respond to that, sir?
Yes, I mean, it is the right for the people of Scotland to actually decide if they want to be independent or not. And it's not for me as an Englishman to come in there and say what you should decide. But let's look at the facts. The facts are the UK will cease to exist if there is a yes vote. It will not survive. I feel for the Welsh, because actually the Welsh need a strong constitutional divide. But actually, when it comes to it, it is a separation of defence. It is a separation of money, taxes. England does, under the Barnett formula, support Scotland. Well, that's,
I wondered when we might introduce the Barnett formula.
Under the Barnett formula,
okay, I'm going to move it.
House of Lords report says £49 billion of English taxpayers' money goes to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. That's $33 billion to Scotland. I respect your decision to want independence, but please don't take English money because we need it.
OK, over here. Roars of laughter from the yes camp.
George from Glasgow. I agree with you. We should have a parliament.
Thank you.
But I think it's more of a redress that we're talking about, because the Scottish National Party, I think it's £18 billion a year less than they're supposed to be getting, and it's on a moral stance that they're taking. They take less money out of the Whitehall than they put in. So how can you then say that you're giving us £39 billion?
All I can do is go back to the House of Lords report in 2009 and give you the actual figures from there. It's very clear. I mean, even Daniel Alexander has come out and accepted that actually the English taxpayer does actually see a significant
A lot of people will dispute that. But why don't we bring Brian Taylor in, who is our political editor in Scotland? What are the facts when it comes to subsidising Scotland or not?
There can't be any precision on that. I think I like the point that was made there, that uncertainty is intrinsic in politics, yes. Whether it's on the Union, whether you believe that the Union will advance Scotland's case or whether you believe independence would advance Scotland's case. Consider independence. We're talking about a vote next year. At the very earliest, you're talking about independence happening if there is a yes vote in 2016. That's 3 years' time. The Chancellor of the Exchequer and his colleagues at the Liberal Democrat conference here in Glasgow would struggle to tell you what the economy is going to be like in 3 months, perhaps even in 3 weeks. That's not because they're bad, not because they're ignorant, not because they're dumb, but because things change all the time. So you're faced with if you like, competing uncertainties. And the choice for the people of Scotland, and it is a choice for the people of Scotland, is which they trust, which they are more inclined to trust. Many people say to me, for goodness sake, Brian, just tell us the facts, and then the answer will be obvious. It's just not possible to do that. All we can do, all anyone can do, is put forward the competing offers, and it's then up to people to determine which one sounds more credible.
Okay. Does anybody feel they want to swap places at this stage? Sort of 20 minutes into the conversation. Anybody in the undecideds at all? No, that's fine. Let's talk to more members of our audience here in Glasgow today. Where are we? Yes. Hello. Hi, what would an independent Scotland mean to you, sir?
I'm Darren from East Kilbride. I actually think there's a bit of a general naivety about the yes camp, about what an independent Scotland actually would mean. Trident's probably the perfect example. They seem to assume a yes vote means the end of Trident. Probably not. They seem to think an independent Scotland would be a socialist utopian republic. Probably not. And in actual fact, for Scotland to be competitive on the world stage, it would probably need to be neoliberal, i.e. high taxation in this country, low corporate tax, and tax breaks for the rich to actually get some wealth created in the country.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and you're a yes, sir. Why?
Eddie O'Neill, Falthouse. Can we please nail this white elephant once and for all?
Which one?
I would suggest this idea that Scotland's too poor, too small, too stupid to survive on its own. What I would suggest to all sides in this argument, the no side, forget the yes arguments, they're not true. The yes side, forget the no arguments, they're not true either. What I suggest you do is go onto your computer, go onto Wikipedia, and type in Scotland.
Don't use Wikipedia.
It says in so many words there that Scotland pays more money to the Central Exchequer than it receives. Fact.
Right, we're going to talk about the economy properly in just 1 second. I've got some quick fire questions for Professor John Curtis, who's with us, Professor of Politics at Strathclyde University and editor of whatscotlandthinks.org, and also Brian Taylor alongside him, our political editor in Scotland. If Scotland becomes independent, what will the rest of the United Kingdom be called?
It's up to the rest of the United Kingdom.
Yes. Okay. The rest of the United Kingdom, do you have any suggestions for the United Kingdom? Yeah. Okay. We'll get some microphones to you and come back to that in a second.
The Prime Minister and the Chancellor both said it would be the continuing United Kingdom, and the RUK, if you like, would inherit all of the obligations.
Yes, I mean, in practice, it will remain United Kingdom for so long as Scotland decides to keep the Queen. But if an independent Scotland in future were to decide to get rid of the Queen, then in truth, there would no longer be a United Kingdom. So that's perhaps the point at which the issue would really arise.
Fair enough. And Fiona Hislop, if Scotland becomes independent, you'd like to keep the monarchy?
Yes, and of course, people should remember that the Union of the Crowns was in 1603. The Union of the Parliaments didn't take place to 1707, but it'd be up to the people of Scotland to decide. But our policy is that the Queen would continue as the monarch in independent Scotland.
And would you have to have discussions with Buckingham Palace about that?
I don't think that they would want to see any change. Of course, the Queen is a head of state for so many different countries within the Commonwealth. This city will see the Commonwealth Games later this year, and there will be plenty of countries that have become independent from Britain that have the Queen as the head of state, but they are flourishing countries, and we would like to join those nations as an independent country.
Okay. Brian, if Scotland becomes independent, would it establish border controls between Scotland and England?
Well, that's an issue that's fairly widely debated. If you listen to those advocating independence, they would say absolutely not, and they would say that that's founded upon precedent and also, frankly, upon common sense. They would cite the Irish example. You hear it floated occasionally by the Union side that the border controls would have to be considered. If you like, that is the nature of this referendum entirely. It's about doubt and it's about reassurance. The doubt's being cast entirely reasonably from the Union side as to what would happen, and the reassurance being offered by those advocating.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth bearing in mind here, the precedent, of course, is the position vis-à-vis the UK and the Republic of Ireland, which at the moment has a common travel area. Although it's worth bearing in mind that a few years ago, the United Kingdom government was minded to get rid of the common travel area. And the truth is the future of the border between England and Scotland would depend on decisions not only made by the Scottish government in independent Scotland, but also by the rest of the UK.
Okay. The Union flag, what would happen to the Union flag if Scotland goes for independence?
That's, again, open to debate, although the Union flag is largely a product of the earlier Union that Fiona mentioned, rather than the 1707 version. Presumably, if it was retained as the flag of the monarchy, then it would stay as is, and Scots would have a choice which one to adhere to.
Okay, a couple of suggestions, I think, for what the rest of the United Kingdom should be called if Scotland votes for independence.
Hello, Stephen McFarlane from the Northern Ireland Liberal Democrats. As far as the new name for the United Kingdom would go, it would still be the United Kingdom, probably the United Kingdom of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And in regards to the flag, there is no legal stage to change it, for the sheer fact it is the flag of the United Kingdom. They are up to keep the wish. St Patrick's Cross is still representing Ireland, even though only 6 of 32 counties are still part of the United Kingdom.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bill Cairns. I'm Irish, so I've lived in Scotland for 20 years now, and I believe that Scotland should be independent. I believe that Scotland should have its own independence for the main reason is that Ireland broke away 100 years ago, or almost 100 years ago, and it's taken a long time for Ireland to get on its feet, and it's still not there, and some people have made a mess of it, as we know, in Ireland. I think Irish people have an enormous amount of pride, self-pride, because they rule themselves and not somebody else. They were told 100 years ago that they couldn't possibly get away from Great Britain, and they did. And they succeeded a large amount of that, and they will succeed again. So I don't see that Scotland can fail. I think Scottish people are as passionate as Irish people are, and as Welsh people are. So if you wanted to give it a new name for the UK, we could call it Lesser UK. Thank you.
Okay, right. Let me read some text messages. You can tweet using the hashtag 5LiveDebate or text 85058 if you want to know more about the debate. Go to the BBC's website, bbc.co.uk/Scotland's future. Dave in Uxbridge has texted, if Scotland can vote on independence, why can't the English? Another listener, Andy in Hull, says Scotland will be fools not to get out of the Union. All the money's in London and the regions get ripped off. Vote out, Scotland. Pat in Worcester says, if Scotland go independent, are they taking with them their portion of the national debt? If so, let them go. Why not? On Twitter, Jane54 says, let's not kid ourselves. Any problems in an independent Scotland would still be blamed on the Westminster Parliament. Margaret says, I'm a small business owner. I'm worried we don't vote yes. We need policies that reflect the needs of the Scottish economy. Right, let's talk about the economy then. We are on the BBC News Channel. We're also on 5 Live. Victoria Derbyshire with you. This morning we are live in Glasgow. So what might the economy look like in an independent Scotland? How might economic relationships change? Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah, I'm Beppo from Oban. Tourism and hospitality is a huge part of the Scottish economy, and our biggest, most significant market is south of the border. And I don't see any reason to alienate that market south of the border by putting up any sort of border control, whether to do with actually the market or to do with the labour market as well.
OK, well, there are a few groans from the yes camp. Do you want to respond to that? Hi.
My key thing here is that Scotland is a country within the UK, but there's also over 200 other countries around the UK, around the world, that interact, come to Scotland, trade with Scotland. The barriers aren't there. We have free trade around the world.
40%
if we
of our
became an independent country, then why couldn't people from England access it and come here just as easily?
40% of our market comes from England. We're seen as being part of the United Kingdom.
Let them talk to each other. Go ahead.
We're seen as being part of the United Kingdom by overseas countries as well. And that helps. We have double hit. We have the hit of the British markets overseas. We have the hit of the Scotland market overseas.
Would people from around the UK not come to Scotland after independence? Why not?
I think when they see any sort of barrier, any sort of alienation of that market.
What would the barrier be, sir, in your view?
I think there's the barrier in terms of any tax regime, any difference in the tax regime we have in this country.
Would that stop tourists?
Yeah, it would do. We currently have a huge difference in the VAT regime within Europe, and that stops tourists coming from overseas to Britain.
People go just as easily for the EU.
So if we had a more competitive VAT regime for tourism, as some countries have done, that would be a positive.
I entirely believe that, yeah. So there are no plans for that currently.
Well, if you look about making decisions for Scotland, tourism is a huge part of Scotland's economy. We welcome people from all over the world. People come to Scotland because of our beauty, of our heritage, the warm welcome of our people. That, in a free trade area, people go travel wherever they want to travel, and that's the attractiveness of Scotland. And I think that warm welcome will be extended long after an independence yes vote.
Currently, people have a choice to go anywhere in the world. The uncertainty doesn't help build that market.
OK, let's... hello, good morning.
Hello, I'm Alison and I'm from Glasgow. I'm a civil servant and I work for HMRC. Basically, I would like to understand what the independence would mean to my pocket.
Would you be better off?
Well, would I? I don't know.
Let's ask Fiona Hislop and Elaine C. Smith. And then the question to Anna Sauer and Alan Savage as well. Go ahead.
I agree with Brian Taylor. This is a choice of two futures as to what would happen under independence and what would happen under the United Kingdom. Some of that we will know and some of that we don't know. But what we do know, though, is the underlying strength of Scotland's economy. Currently, in terms of the 11-12 figures, we contribute 9.9% of the revenue to the UK. We currently get 9.3% back. So there is that opportunity there. But more importantly, it's the dynamism of your economy to make sure that you can pay for your social services, we can pay for our social services, pensions, etc., in terms of the strength of our economy. But the most important thing is what we can do for the future, the type of Scotland we can build. And that relates to economy as well. And that's why the point about tourism, life sciences, renewable energies are really important to Scotland. Some of the industries are very important to Scotland that we can disproportionately then be able to emphasise them. And
is that an answer to your question?
Forward. Well, not really. I suppose it goes a bit deeper for me.
What's the point?
Well, overall, it's probably too many questions. But overall, it's all very well speaking of independence, and I have been an SNP supporter since 18. But the bottom line is I don't hear anything coming from SNP about how it's going to affect the public services as far as jobs go. I've heard you touch on the forces, etc. But there's no indication to me clearly
I'll give you...
Briefly, Fiona Hislop.
Two points. Look at what we've done already. We have no compulsory redundancies for public servants in the current government. That's the value system that we have. We believe in public services. That's why we're keeping the NHS, and we want to keep Royal Mail in public hands, and that protects public servants.
John Curtis, before I bring in the Better Together campaign on the question from the member of our audience there was a poll recently, I think, that suggested that if either side could say people in Scotland will be 500 quid better off or 500 quid worse off, that would make up pretty much everybody's mind.
And indeed, there's been a not dissimilar poll published only indeed this morning, and indeed it shows that if indeed people in Scotland were convinced they'd be 500 quid better off, you get a 47 to 37 vote in favour of independence. Conversely, however... Conversely, however, if people think they'll be £500 worse off, then support for independence falls down to around the 20% mark. And I think, at the moment at least, the evidence again in the same poll is that that people are not necessarily convinced they're going to be 500 quid better off at the moment, according to the poll. Rather, more people think that Scotland's economy will be worse off than better off under independence. But I think there is no doubt, whatever is your view, that this is probably going to be the central issue in this referendum, certainly so far as changing opinion is concerned, because this seems to be the issue which is most clearly related to whether people are for or against at the moment, and it's the issue on which people say they're most willing to change their minds. So this debate in this section of the programme is probably the essence of what's going to happen during the course of the next 12 months.
Anas Sawar, are you going to tell, or Alan Savage from the Better Together campaign, are you going to tell people that they would be better off sticking with the union, and can you give us some figures to show that?
Absolutely, because what we've had from Fiona so far was assertion. Because what they say is that everything you like will stay the exact same, and everything you don't like just won't happen anymore. The reality is that we sell more and contribute more to the rest of the UK. We sell more to the rest of the UK than we do to the rest of the world. We are part of a successful UK single market. And the questions that people need to answer to, the question that the lady in the audience needs to answer to, the question that Alan was referring to and other business people is, what money will they have in their pocket? What will their pay and their conditions be? What will they be in comparison to the rest of the UK? What tax will they pay on their income? How will their pension be affected post-independence, whether that's a public sector pension, which John Swinney himself has questioned the affordability of when Fiona was sitting around the cabinet table in secret and not saying the absolute opposite in public? How will we have the private provision of pensions, where you're not allowed to have cross-border pensions that aren't fully funded across the EU? What will the tax competitiveness be?
There's a lot of questions there, but not many answers.
Absolutely. No. Absolutely. That's exactly the point, Victoria. Exactly, Victoria. It is not me. It is not me that wants to break away from the UK system.
But you need to give us the answers as well from the No campaign.
No, I'll tell you what the answers are. I'll tell you the answers. It is not me. It is not me that wants to break the UK single market.
So you don't have to answer anything.
No, it's not me that wants to have a lower corporation tax in the UK. I'll tell you what we do need. We need not just a constitutional argument, we actually need an economic and social argument.
That's what I'm trying to have today, a debate about it.
Okay, Victoria, the reality is, see people watching at home, they're not worried about which politician has which power in what building.
Okay.
What they're worried about is how they're going to put food on the table.
Alan Savage, can you answer?
How they're going to provide a job for
Can you
family.
try and answer our lady over there who wants to know a really simple, straightforward question? Yeah. Would she be better off?
Well, there's an assumption made that the North Sea oil would be split geographically. But if you split it by population, it's a different ballgame. But if you use the same argument on the yes side of laughing, what about the proportion of national debt? If you split national debt the same way, then it reverses.
Can I just give you
Either
some
way,
figures?
you're in a mess.
Yeah. Let's have some figures here. These are published by the Scottish Government this year. So March 2013. Total revenue raised in Scotland for 2011-12, 57 billion. Total public expenditure in Scotland for that year, 65 billion. So there's the 7 billion shortfall.
There isn't a shortfall.
Well, how would you describe that?
In terms of, I gave you the figures for 11-12, 9.9% of the UK revenue.
Sorry,
raised in
how would you describe 7 billion less?
Cash terms.
It's not in terms of if you take it in terms of the resource that we have. If you take the point that Alan raises, somehow the oil is somehow seen as a problem for Scotland. It's not.
No, I didn't say that at all.
Sorry,
don't put words in my mouth, please. I never said that.
Is there a shortfall of 7 billion or not?
No, we don't have a shortfort in terms of the revenue raised in Scotland.
In terms of you do, according to Scottish Government figures published in March 2013.
In terms of the expenditure in Scotland, we more than pay our own way. I find it in terms of
they're John Swinney's figures. They're your government's figures.
Can I bring in Brian Taylor here, political editor?
The point is there is a deficit in Scotland, as there is a deficit in the whole of the UK.
Yes.
And the figures. So if you like, Scotland is in the red, the UK is in the scarlet.
Absolutely. Would it be good to hear a politician acknowledge that?
Well, I think Fiona did with the figures she was using earlier. She might perhaps have been more frank with regard to the figures you use there. Is there a deficit in Scottish spending? Yes, there is. Is there a deficit in UK spending? Yes, there is. And Fiona's argument earlier was that is slightly greater. But the point that Anas is making is also a legitimate one. I mean, you were asking him to give answers, but he was being asked about independence. And so consequently, he was saying at that point that there were answers for it was up to the other side to justify the situation under independence, because he's not proposing it. So I thought that was, if you
fair
like,
enough.
And
Hello. Let's hear from more members of the audience. Hello.
I'm Andy Lithgow. As you can tell from my accent, I'm English, but I've lived in Glasgow for more than 20 years. I just want to touch upon the deficit proposition. There is a deficit of about 7 billion based upon last year's JERS figures, but the significance lies in the fact that there's a relative subsidy by Scotland to England. And it has been that way for the last 30 to 40 years. I'd also like to just add that even disregarding the oil and gas, Scotland's GDP per head is 99% of the UK average. With oil and gas, it's 118% GDP per head.
So from the No campaign, no wonder you don't want Scotland to go it alone, because you need their money.
Well, as a Welshman, I have to say it doesn't affect me at all. But I would say you can argue these figures until the cows come home. I think your Scottish, the BBC Scotland correspondent said this earlier in the debate, that both sides are going to use the statistics to suit their own side. And I think the people of Scotland, just as the people across the rest of the UK, will depend on the statisticians and the experts to help them with the facts. But really, this is an emotional debate. This isn't a statistical, financial, economic debate. This comes down to the heart. My buddy from Wales over there, I can see him sitting opposite me in the Yes camp. We travelled up from Wales together yesterday, and he said it himself. Perhaps he'd like to contribute himself, that this isn't really about finance. This isn't really about the economy. This is about what tugs the heart.
No. A lot of people disagree, sir.
My view as a Welshman, I fear, I'm a socialist, many of my friends opposite are socialists, and I fear that the rest of the United Kingdom will become less progressive. The whole of this island will become less. I agree with you who said that. It is less progressive than it ever was. And we are in very dire times. I would agree with you, madam. And I know you from Rabsy Nesbitt, don't I? But I have to say,
I don't have the wig on.
I
Sorry.
fear for the progressive, social, democratic, somebody used the word earlier, future of our whole country. And I fear for the regions of England as well, who suffered under Mrs Thatcher, just like Scotland and Wales did.
Okay.
So let's not make this a nationalist debate against a unionist debate. Let's talk about working together across the whole of this island to bring about the same benefits for all our people, whether they live in Aberdeen or Aberystwyth or in somewhere else beginning with A in England.
All right.
I can't think, but
Thank you.
I'm John from Glasgow. I think we should get rid of all these red herrings that are flying about the room. You know, we've heard it all before. Anas, as usual, as per his television debate recently, he answers a question with 6 questions of his own. Labour have no credibility. I'm a Labour supporter, but for me, SNP are doing the right things for Scotland. We've got to stop being a dumping ground for a parliament based in Westminster that really looks after the interests of the southeast of England, let's be honest.
Can I ask from the Yes campaign, Fiona Hislop, about the currency? You want to continue using the pound and the Bank of England, which clearly would remove the exchange rate risk and any exchange rate costs. But you have to get agreement from the UK Treasury, and you don't have that yet.
Well, This is a point about the role of the United Kingdom and the responsible role post a yes vote. The important part of this referendum was the agreement, the Edinburgh Agreement, signed by David Cameron and Alex Salmond. And part of that, Clause 30, was whatever the result of this referendum, both parliaments, both governments would work in the interest of the people of Scotland. In terms of the currency, it would be in the interest of the United Kingdom, because of the relative strength of Scotland in terms of balance of payments, to be part of that currency union. And I think the point made about needing facts and independent views on this, the Fiscal Working Commission that was set up, which had two economic Nobel laureates on it, their recommendation is that post-independence there should be a continuation of a currency arrangement. That's very good advice indeed. But actually, the important point in continuing is that we'll be able to determine our fiscal, our political views and our interests for the interests of the industries that matter to us. But the important thing is, post a yes vote, everybody, Scotland and the rest of the UK, should work collectively for common interests and cooperation. And that's the terms of this debate that is really important, because it is about our futures, and we will do so in a respectful way, but more importantly, in an equal way, and that's the difference.
Sorry, go on. Anna Sauer and then Brian Taylor.
If you want to keep on that, we've heard throughout the debate this morning about the democratic deficit that the Nationals say is at the moment in terms of the United Kingdom. The real democratic deficit on offer is that you want to leave the rest of the United Kingdom, but ask the rest of the United Kingdom to still set our interest rates, our spending limits, our borrowing limits, and sign off on our budgets. And at the same time, we lose our representation and our influence. That is why your own working group said that we're better off sharing a currency. And the best way of guaranteeing we share a currency is to stay part of the United Kingdom.
Let me ask an independent. Brian Taylor, in terms of the Bank of England being the central bank for the two independent countries, does that mean the UK Treasury would have a veto over Scottish budgets? And theoretically, Scotland would have a veto over UK Treasury budgets?
The point the Chancellor has made is particularly that the letter, which he would seem to find unacceptable. I think the argument with regard to the currency, and one hears from the SNP the point about the currency, I think the point they would make is perhaps that there are arguments being advanced now by those advocating the union, entirely understandably from their perspective. They're stressing the downside. Alex Salmond has said that in the event of a referendum yes occurring, that it would be in the interests of the UK, because remember, to set up a currency union and have stable arrangements. Because the point Fiona Hislop made about the Edinburgh Agreement, she said it was to debate and pursue the interests of Scotland. Of course, it was Scotland and the remainder and the rest of the United Kingdom. And the argument advanced by the Prime Minister is that that doesn't mean that the UK gives Scotland everything she wants. In the event of a yes vote, it means that there would then have to be negotiations in which the yes vote would be respected. It means perhaps no more than that. But I think the argument you hear from the SNP privately, or not even quite semi-privately, is that there are two positions to be adopted by those advocating the unionist cause. The one in advance of a referendum, when they are stressing the downside, and the one post a referendum, when they would simply have to deal with the consequences.
And you also hear this argument, and tell me if you think this is legitimate, Brian Taylor. If Scotland were to vote for independence, retain the pound, but some people decided that perhaps England's economy, they thought, was more robust, so moved everything south, could that paralyse things? Start to collapse?
This is an argument. This is an argument advanced very strongly by those of the union persuasion, is that you would have an asymmetrical arrangement between a relatively small Scottish economy and a large English economy, and they say that in that circumstances, the economy, particularly of the smaller partner, would be subject to asymmetrical shocks that are currently smoothed out across the common point. Now, so you have there, if you like, again, two competing offers. You have the argument that you can tailor the requirements of Scotland because you're in a smaller polity, if you like, a smaller body politic. And you have the argument from the other side, which is that you require that wider canvas upon which to paint stability.
Okay. Yes, hello.
Hi, I'm Marion. I'm a student from Johnson. I think one of the main issues that's important to people is not about currency, it's not about interest rates, it's about jobs. People care about jobs. People are in jobs, they're worried about losing their jobs. People looking for jobs, they simply can't find them. With youth unemployment now at 21%, let's not kid ourselves, it's been growing for many, many years, ignored by successive governments. How can the Yes camp assure us that they can fix youth unemployment? A problem that big cannot be fixed by Scotland going independent. We need to remain part of the UK. Because people in Glasgow and the rest of Scotland, they're not the only ones that are looking for jobs. It's people down in England, Newcastle, Liverpool, exactly the same situation. We should not be separating from these people.
Good morning. Ray Lormer, Chair of the Institute of Hospitality Scotland, representing the food, drink and hospitality industry in Scotland. A couple of issues that we're concerned about is pay and pensions, and I have to say, as someone who has a pension as an ex-British Army officer, it's a concern for myself personally as well as members. So there's a concern that will there be any difference? This is for both sides, for both yes and no. Will there be any difference in the average worker, and not the average worker perhaps, pay and pensions as they stand at the moment? Will I lose? Will I gain? How can that be answered by both sides, please?
And briefly. Together.
Look, we will obviously set out what the policy will be in 2015, 2016 in terms of the election, but we have committed to the triple lock, which I know the Nationalists have too, as well as the Tory and the Lib Dems. But the interesting point is, and this is where I think people deserve honesty and transparency, is that the Scottish Cabinet sat around the table and produced a private document that openly questioned the affordability of state pensions post-independence, but now claim that didn't happen. And also on private pension schemes, that's a crucial point. You saw just yesterday the Czech Republic being fined because they didn't have a fully funded cross-border pension scheme. If we don't have a fully costed cross-border pension scheme on day one of independence, that's a real risk for workers right across the country. And that's a black hole of not millions, of billions.
Were you sitting around that cabinet table when that conversation happened?
There was no secret document. In terms of the affordability of pensions and social protection, currently in relation to GDP, the cost per GDP per capita for Scotland is 14.4%, 15.9% for the United Kingdom as a basis just now. We have the triple lock commitment in terms of pensions would increase by whether it's higher earnings, whether it's in relation to inflation or 2.5%, whatever is the greater. But I think it's about the certainty. But 2 of the 9 pension centres currently are in Scotland. We can certainly service that. Private pensions are contractual. Before I was a politician, I actually worked in the pensions industry. And one of the things that really concerned me was in 1997, because the government at the time came in and raided pensions with the tax Gordon Brown brought in the first budget. And that was a risk. That was a problem. So in terms of the security of pensions, we have the capability to deliver. In terms of the dependability and what you'll get that certainly from the state pension. Okay. And in terms of private pensions, that's contractual.
So my pension that I get from HM government at the moment, from Westminster,
that would be continued.
That will be safe.
Absolutely.
So that's a message to all people in whatever industry that are.
And so you're in the undecided section. Does that answer help sway you in any particular direction?
There's still a lot of other areas that I will sit here for a little while. Not totally.
Okay. Is there anybody in the undecided section an hour into our conversation this morning who feels like moving so far? Or you're going to move? Where are you moving? You're moving. So you've moved from the undecided to the better together. You want the United Kingdom to remain.
My name's Phil Parry, and I'm from
Tell us
Wales
why.
Eye. And we get a very clear, although we don't have a vote, we get a very clear overriding impression, and watching this debate very clearly, that people, I'd like to support my friend here, care very deeply about public expenditure. Yeah. And this is an emotional debate. It's an emotional vote which we'll lose because people care about public expenditure.
Why have you moved, sir?
I've moved because when they go in that ballot box and that booth, they will care very much about whether they are better off and their family are better off. And I think that they will think no.
Okay. All right, over here. Some more undecided. Go ahead, you're still undecided, tell us why.
My name's Rowan McCaskill and I'm in my final year of school, much like Austin behind me. So far I've not heard anything to sway me in any particular direction.
What do you need to hear to sway you in any particular direction?
I feel like neither party is answering each other's questions or the questions that are vital for us to know. I feel like we're not being furnished with the details that we need to make an informed decision. For example, I feel like the Yes campaign's economic plan for an independent Scotland doesn't seem to go much further than 3 words, which is North Sea and oil. And then the Better Together... And then Better Together doesn't seem to be able to answer any of the points that the Yes campaign has put forward. Instead, they try and poke holes in their plans instead of answering the problems that have already been addressed. So I just want to know, how exactly we as voters can be expected to make an informed decision if no one will inform us first?
Good question. Behind you, hello. Oh, hi, again.
I'm me again.
Oh, you still haven't made up your mind.
I'm tenacious. Same point as Rowan, North Sea oil, it's not a renewable energy.
Okay, well, let's just deal with that then. Clearly a big source of revenue.
Oil and gas.
And it's oil and gas. Anything up to $13 billion a year for the UK Treasury. It's going to run out at some point. What do you say will fill that?
Look, I think the point...
Why are you saying "oh" like that? Is that not a legitimate question?
No, actually, what I'm depressed about the level of the debate here, that it seems to be... Can I just say... that everyone in the Yes campaign in Scotland, just for the listeners and the rest of the UK, are not members of the SNP. I've never been a member of that party in my life. There are many, many different voices in there, and this is not a vote for the SNP or Alex Salmon. This is a vote for us, and we will decide yes or no. We, the people of Scotland, will decide who we're going to be, and to divide it down the same old boring part is what it turns
Elaine,
off.
it is a legitimate question, is it not?
I'm not saying there are not legitimate questions, but all these figures are out there, and what you end up is with a very sterile debate. I also want to answer the question about emotion. Now, it is my intellect that has brought me to this place, my intelligence. And could I say, the emotional and pejorative terms come from the other side, like separation, disaster, awfulness, everything. The debate actually is, it's our hearts that fear. It is our intelligence that has taken us to this place. And fears are legitimate things for people to embrace. Okay. On the point of the woman about will my pension be safe, I'm in the public service, all I can say is there will be no guarantees. That's grown-up politics. A grown-up country will decide and deal with these things. But what is absolutely the case is, if we continue on the way we are, with the system we have, and the parties that look like they're going to stay in power, the vested interest parties who are looking after themselves, then your pension will go down and your public services will decrease. Nothing showing.
Anna, so a quick response, and then we're going to the news.
Elaine, I absolutely respect your position, and I applaud you for it, actually, because you have a principled emotion about and a principled intellectual opinion about why you think Scotland's better as separate from the rest of the UK. I accept that, and I welcome that. And exact same with me. But what people need, quite clearly, right across the country, is answers to what will affect them the day after independence, and quite clearly they're not getting that answer.
Okay,
and it is for the government.
From either side.
It is for the government through the white paper to make that case.
Okay,
and the
thank
problem
you
have
for the
is
moment.
What the SNP is proposing is very different from what
Thank
Scotland
you.
members.
Good morning, it's 5 Live. It's 11 minutes past 11. As you can hear, lots of conversations going on amongst the members of our audience. I'm Victoria, Derbyshire, and you can also watch us today on the Red Button and the 5 Live website. If I could ask everyone to take their seats, that would be lovely. We're broadcasting today, and we're live from Glasgow. And in just over a year's time, on the 18th of September 2014, voters who live in Scotland will be asked the referendum question, should Scotland be an independent country? Clearly, that's what we're talking about here today with our audience of around 200 or so listeners. If you want to get involved at home, do tweet using the hashtag 5LiveDebate or text on 85058. An hour ago, members of our audience seated themselves in one of 3 sections here at the Old Fruit Market in Glasgow, which reflected whether they were pro-independence, pro-the United Kingdom, or completely undecided. We had 80 people in the yes camp, 80 people in the no camp, and 58 in the undecideds. Now we've got 80 in the yes, 81 in the no, and 59 in the undecideds.
81.
81. Somebody's moved. Who's moved? Somebody moved from the undecideds. Is it this gentleman here? We'll find out. I'll tell you what, we'll find out. But I really want to talk to you now about your identity, how you feel about being British, how you feel about being Scottish. And Professor John Curtis from Strathclyde University, you've carried out some research from the Scottish Social Attitude Survey, which suggests that people's sense of Britishness could be one of the the keys to winning the Scottish independence referendum?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, the first thing to realise is that for most people in Scotland, their sense of Scottish identity is stronger than their sense of British identity. And in fact, around 2/3 of people in Scotland say they feel very strongly Scottish, and only around 1/3 or so say they feel very strongly British. But the truth is that because virtually everybody in Scotland feels Scottish, it follows that therefore this is not actually the thing that divides people into the yes or the no camp. What much more clearly divides them to the yes or no camp is how British they feel.
Okay.
And it's very clear that those people who feel strongly British are much less willing at the moment to vote in favour of independence than those who feel weakly British. And I think almost ironically, therefore, although the proposition on the ballot paper is going to be, should Scotland be an independent country? At the moment, the question that a lot of people in Scotland seems to be asking themselves is actually, should Scotland leave the United Kingdom? And at the moment, at least, although their sense of British identity is weaker than their Scottish identity, there are quite a lot of people out there for whom that identity is enough that they are saying, I'm not really quite sure I want to leave. And I think that's certainly one of the barriers, if that's the right word, that the yes side are going to have to overcome over the next 12 months if they're going to turn around opinion polls, which at the moment are still pointing to roughly a 3-2 vote in favour of no, and in truth have looked pretty much the same during the course of the last 12 months.
If the electorate's about 4 million, how many votes are up for grabs at this stage with a year to go?
Well, again, according to the opinion polls, just under a fifth or so of people are saying that they don't know when the pollsters ask them. Though again, there's about another fifth of the people who are willing to say to the pollsters whether they vote yes or no, who say they might change their mind. So potentially up to about 40% of the Scottish public might change their minds. So that said, so far the opinion polls have been, on average at least, remarkably stable during the course of this campaign.
Has there ever been an opinion poll in the last 30 years, 40 years, 50 years which has showed a majority in favour of independence?
Yes, there has. There was indeed an opinion poll only a couple of weeks ago which had a 1-point lead for the yes side. Though some of us, I had to then criticise the methodology of that poll on the grounds it seemed to be leading some people to saying yes. What I think one does need to realise, although there has been the odd opinion poll during the course of the last 40 years that has shown a majority for yes, there has never been a period during which the opinion polls have been consistently demonstrating a majority for independence, and that therefore the task facing the yes side is in truth to create a majority for independence, which according to the evidence of opinion polls at least has never previously hitherto consistently been there.
Brian Taylor, our political editor in Scotland, how significant do you think the identity bit is in terms of this
point
debate?
That John makes there is a good one, that the idea of Scottish identity is a given in Scotland. It might have been something we would have debated and discussed 150 years ago when this part of the world was known as North Britain, or there was an attempt to call it, a rather unsuccessful attempt to call it North Britain. We've become comfortably Scots. We're Scottish, not Belgian, not Greek, but it's no big deal anymore. But I still say it is the underlying salience of the entire issue. If you think about it, the question of identity underlines the entire thing. Nations and states do not arise from the Asia Sea. They are constructs of geography, history, conflict, but ultimately they're constructs of choice by the people. If the people choose that they express their identity in a certain way, then that will be the case. What happened in Scotland was people felt increasingly Scottish. They felt comfortable with that identity. They wanted that expressed in a political way. That created the SNP in the first place in 1934. It obliged Labour and the Liberal Democrats to respond with devolution. And here in Scotland, it all but obliterated the Conservative Party as they were seen as representing an identity that had become, to some extent, different from that of Scotland.
OK. We've got 3 people with microphones all standing up. Why don't you have a conversation together? Do introduce yourselves. Hello.
Hi, I'm Alison Black. I come from Gourock. I run a voluntary animal rescue and animal rights campaigner. I would like to say first and foremost, I am Scottish. I am capable of thinking with my head and my heart. And I would like to remind people of the Declaration of Arbroath, 1320, for as long as 100 of us remain, never shall we be brought under English rule. This is worth dying for. People have fought for this in the past, and it should be remembered. On public forums, I should be asked, first of all, am I Scottish or British? My preference is, my hereditary is, I am Scottish, and I would want to fight for that.
Hi.
Do stay standing, yes, hello.
I'm Amy, I'm from Inverness and I'm a student. My mum's English and my dad is Scottish. I view myself as being British. I was born in Scotland, I live in Scotland, I love Scotland. I do. But if we split up, I feel like I'm going to be losing part of my identity. I'm a British person. If I then live in an independent Scotland, what does that make me?
Do you really feel like you'll lose part of your identity?
Do you know what? In a way, I do. I think, yeah, independent country, I'm then going to be what? I'm going to end up with dual citizenship? Am I going to need an English passport and a Scottish passport? I feel like that's then splitting up part of who I am.
Okay.
And I know this is a completely it's an emotional issue, I think. And just while we're on the point of emotional issues, I think throughout the debate we could probably do with less theatrics from the other side.
Okay. Please stay standing. Yes, hello. Join the conversation.
From Johnston. I Unite, the union rep. I'm a Labour card holder, but I'm very, very proud to be Scottish. My heart tells me to sit on this side. My head tells me, please, both of you, give me some information to tell me what I should do. Also, my heart tells me, has there any plans? If the yes get their yes vote, what are they actually going to do? Have they got anything in plan for what Labour are going to bring forward? I don't feel that I have enough information from them. Everybody always fights with each other. They seem to be childlike with each other. I need information because my heart will rule over my head if I do not get the information.
And would that be a bad thing if your heart ruled over your head?
I think so. If I get up to that vote and I've not got enough information...
But surely the information comes from the white paper that the SNP are going to produce.
In November.
So when we see the details of the white paper, then we can rebut or agree or whatever we do with the suggestions they're going to make. They've not put anything down in writing that's clear. It's all vague. The only report we've seen is a leak report from John Swinney that says it won't work.
But you're not giving me any reason for me to stay in the UK either.
When I see the white paper...
but you're not giving me any reasons to stay in the UK. What reasons would me, as a mum of 3, a Unite activist, a full-time working mum, with only one wage coming into my house, why would I stay in the UK?
Because bureaucracy kills business, and we're just going to create more levels of bureaucracy. It's a fact.
Do you want your child...
What you're actually hearing from the person in the audience is actually, I think, hits the nail on the head about what this debate's all about. It's not about, profits. It's not about who's got what percentage going. It's actually not about statistics at all. It's actually not even about emotion at all. I'm proud and passionate to be Scottish. I would say I was Scottish before I was anything else.
Can we just, as Brian said, can we take that as a given? Everyone here is proud to be Scottish.
What matters is, because what this lady is concerned about, what families right across the UK are afraid of, and as I say, it's not a Scottish, Welsh or English thing. Families right across the UK are worried about how they're going to put food on the table. Yeah. They're worried about how they're going to guarantee a good education for their child. They're worried about whether their child will get into a decent college place or university place.
Right, okay.
They're also worried about what kind of images. But the issue is...
Well, the answer from Alan Savage was that if there's an independent Scotland, there's 2 countries, potentially the same union, same currency union, a Bank of England governing 2 independent countries. Alan is suggesting that the bureaucracy will kill business, and that won't necessarily be good. Does that answer your question?
No, I was going to answer the point because she's absolutely right.
Please do.
It's not about a constitutional debate. It's about social and economic change. The social and economic model right across the UK doesn't work for anyone right across the UK.
Okay.
Can
you let her respond?
Yeah, of course.
Is that the kind of answer that makes any sense to you?
Not entirely, no. Right. I mean... You look at my children. In fact, my head will always rule over my children before anything else. They come first. No matter what I believe or what I activate for. I will go down to England. I will support the NHS. I will fight for them in Manchester when I go down for the demo. But my children are here. They're in this country. They're going to provide my children with free education. I'm scared they'll lose that if we don't get the yes vote. But I'm not getting the, no, you're going to keep what you've got already. They're not telling me that. They're just...
Okay. Well, I'm going to go to this lady who's listening to every word. Just a minute, please. Just a minute. You're listening to every word that your fellow countrywoman is saying.
I can relate exactly to what she's saying because I'm like a single mum. I've got 3 children. They're my concern. The future for them. What Scotland's going to be like? Are they going to be independent? Are they going to get a good education? Are we going to get good bin services? Are we going to get more police on the street? Have we had that from Westminster? No.
And
even at the point that we've had, I'm afraid the right honourable gentleman who's sitting over there with £60,000 a year MP salary, voting at MP and voting for an increase in salary when people in Scotland have not had that.
It's not true. It's not true.
I'm going to remind you of a really good Scottish word that's called flannel, and that's all we've had from you this morning.
Okay. response to that.
On the important point. The important point
Don't talk to me, talk to the lady.
The reason why the independence debate should be separate from that is free education in the NHS is already decided right here in Scotland by the Scottish Parliament. I support the principle of free education, but actually what we need to have is, why do we have 48,000 less kids going to college this year than we did last year? Why is it that if you live in Scotland, you're less likely to go to college or university if you come from a working class background than if you live in the rest of the UK? That's a decision taken by this Scottish Government, not a Labour Government, it's by a Scottish Government. And the important point I want to make about practical examples is, at the moment we have divisions. You have the Tories saying, let's divide people by those that are in work and those that are out of work. You've got the SNP saying, let's divide by which part of the United Kingdom you live from. Actually, let's create a social system and an economic system that works equally for whether you're at the top or whether you're at the bottom. And one practical example of what you can do is through procurement. Through procurement, we have £11 billion of procurement contracts in Scotland alone, over £100 billion right across the UK. We should be using our procurement legislation, our procurement guidelines, to make sure we're creating wealth.
And in a really brief answer, Anna Sower,
and actually a living wage as well.
If Scotland votes no, is your party, or when is your party going to come forward with its plans for potentially further devolution ahead of the next Scottish
we've set up our devolution commission. We will have set out our devolution model.
So when will that be?
Before the referendum, we will make it clear to people about what further model of devolution we will accept.
That's
but
fine.
another important point,
no, it's
if
fine.
Scotland votes
Before
yes
the
for
referendum,
independence,
honestly.
if Scotland votes yes for independence, I will accept the decision and work with every other Scot to make it work. Will the Nationals do the same if they vote no?
Okay. Yes. Over here, hello.
My name's Dave Whitten from Dunblane. When I was a child, I was British. I was pressurised into praying to God, standing for the Queen, and singing the national anthem. Now I have grown up. I'm an atheist and I'm a Scot. The lady here who's talking about her children, I had a child who went to university, free education in Scotland. She has now gone to London, and I've had to take out a loan of £12,000 to finish her course. I suggest you young lady move over to this area.
Okay. Can I come in? Just a minute. You've been invited to the yes section.
Well, is somebody from here going to give me a similar argument to invite me to that side about what they will protect for my children?
Absolutely.
If it's a no?
What I'm saying is that under devolution, we've made an open offer around childcare, for example, being the perfect example. Childcare is a perfect example about actually the powers already exist in Scotland to deliver a quality childcare system to help women get back into work and support them. Yes. We are willing to work with the government, even in opposition, to find the money to actually deliver on making childcare happen.
You cannot even work within yourselves. You talked about the bedroom tax, and Joanne Lamont doesn't agree with you.
Speaking over each other.
We support free education, but actually we'd reverse the cut in colleges to make sure that actually people get into college, and actually that is a route for them into employment.
Okay.
Those are things that we support and want to do as part of devolution.
That was an invitation. It's entirely. Just a minute. Do give her an opportunity. You can stay in the undecideds or move.
I think I'll have to stay here because I'm totally not getting any information from this side. I'm not getting protection. I'm not getting that. I am going to protect what you have got for your children. I am not going to protect when it's a no, the bedroom tax will disappear. I'm not going to get. It's okay when the votes are no. We'll keep your NHS, but we'll change it to how England's devolving. But
not at all.
I'm sorry,
I can make that guarantee. Not at all.
Can I just ask, happening with the NHS in England?
Are you expecting that in the next few months you will be able to make up your mind, or can you imagine waking up on that day in September and still not knowing?
No, I'll waking up on that day in September, read the information, and my brain will know exactly what I need to do for my children.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Hello.
Well, I'm still sitting here, as you can all see.
In the undecided section?
Yes. I'm a bit disappointed. One of my fears was that this kind of argument encourages a lot of heated debate and not a lot of kind of thinking. I've been doing a lot of listening, but I've also been a bit disappointed because it seems to me that from one particular side, there seems to be a degree of almost intolerance, not listening to what other people are saying. And that's something I fear quite a lot, that there will be increased intolerance of other people's ideas.
If what happens?
I think emotion can sometimes be helpful, but I think emotion can sometimes distort people's views, and it might not help to reach a positive, logical view of things. I'm afraid that emotion can sometimes take away from people's logical thinking.
Is that always, I mean...
should I say?
It's up to you.
Well, I would say the people who are for the yes vote for independence seem to me a bit intolerant.
Okay, do you want to answer that? Elaine and Fiona Hislop from the Yes Scotland.
I don't feel that it's intolerant. I think there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of stuff I disagree with that's been said on the yes side as well. But I think there's a lot of pejorative stuff that comes out. And there's a lot of frustration you feel on the yes side because... for instance, in Scotland, we don't have one newspaper. We've got one newspaper
Elaine, before you make that point,
us.
can I just get you to address what Maureen was saying about intolerance?
I think what you will not hear, I certainly from the Yes campaign, any intolerance or any anti-English or racist nonsense that would go on in that's not part of the movement I want to be.
You should see my Twitter feed then,
I think there is a...
You should see my Twitter feed then.
Well, you should see mine too. Well... But I wouldn't say that they were necessarily representative of the Yes campaign. I think that's unfair, Anna. But I also don't think that emotion and frustration is necessarily always a bad thing. We're almost made in society to feel that everything has to be logical. Every decision that we make has to be logical. And let's remember, as the great Scottish writer Peter Arnott said, Scotland is basically an argument. That argument will continue after independence or if we don't have it. And I can assure you, if the vote is no, I'm staying here, I'm living here, and I'm working for a better Scotland. I'm voting yes, but I want this place to be better. And this is the avenue I see it going down.
Okay. Fiona Hislop, can you talk to Maureen about the certain level of intolerance she's feeling in the undecided section from the Yes Scotland campaign?
I strongly believe that how we conduct this debate will help shape the country we want to be. And I want that country to be one that is tolerant, that's inclusive, that's engaging. I think Scotland is a country that is passionate about debate. We've always been a country that could have an argument in an empty room. We like to debate, we like to have that, but we'll always be peaceful afterwards and take you for a drink and all the rest of it. And I think that's how we conduct ourselves. And the type of country I'm a politician, but I'm also a mother. And the things that I care about are the things that will mean that we have a country of social justice. I also was the minister that brought in free education. I brought the bill through. My daughter's starting university this week. I have a mother that has to rely on free personal care. These are things that we've decided to do differently in Scotland because we can. And if we can do that for health service, if we can do that for education, why can't we do it for other things? We've proved that when we make decisions ourselves for ourselves, sometimes we can make pretty good decisions, and we've done that in these areas.
Okay. So I want to move...
Part of it is going forward, and that's what's going forward. And can I say, I spent my formative years in England. I was brought up in England. I know firm well that throughout this debate, one of the important things is that we continue that social union of connection.
Okay.
And that can be celebrated because diversity in many ways is strength. Let's celebrate what we're good at and recognise that in our Welsh colleagues and our English colleagues as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you log onto the 5 Live website, our correspondent James Shaw has made a report for the programme looking at some of the issues Scotland faces. It's bbc.co.uk/5 Live. Max in Glasgow, I came into this campaign as undecided, but over the past year I've come down in favour of no. The SNP and some of their supporters have displayed an unbelievable arrogance bordering on bullying if you disagree. On the oil aspect, it's UK oil, not Scottish, and it belongs to the companies drilling, not the nation. David in London, in many ways, it's about trust, not about pounds, and having a fair, democratic, kinder society than we have imposed on us from London, says David. An anonymous listener, if Scotland wants independence, then all social security funding from Westminster should be withdrawn. All Scottish MPs sitting at Westminster should lose their seats and sit in the Scottish Parliament instead. Well, some of that will happen. Ross, surely independence can only enhance Scotland's international reputation and give our tourism a massive boost. Thank you for those. Do keep them coming in. What about Scotland's place in the rest of the world? We've talked about Scotland's place in the UK, obviously. The Yes campaign say Scotland would negotiate to remain a full member of the EU, NATO, the Commonwealth, the UN, and they say there'll be no euro, at least for now, and no nuclear weapons. Is it as straightforward as that? Fiona Hislop is with us, an SNP member of the Scottish Parliament, also from the Yes Scotland campaign, Elaine C. Smith, Anna Sarwar, Labour MP for Glasgow Central, Deputy Leader of Scottish Labour, and Alan Savage, the businessman from the Orion Group. In terms of the EU, Brian Taylor, clearly SNP and Yes Scotland say there would be a period of negotiation, but effectively membership of the EU would carry on. Yeah. Will it be as straightforward as that?
The SNP have had to move their position on this in terms of the approach they have evinced, because they used to argue that it was automatic, that Scotland would retain membership, would inherit the membership as part of the current member state, the United Kingdom. They have slightly tailored that a little bit to say that it would be negotiations, but that they believe those negotiations would be easily successful. They base that argument upon the same argument as they use with regard to the currency and the Bank of England, which is that it would be in the interests of the European Union, which they say is an inclusive organisation, not an organisation that likes to expel members, to admit Scotland. Basically, it comes down to economics. They say that Scotland has got all the oil, all the fish and all the whiskey. What's not to like?
Okay. What does everybody think about Scotland's place within the rest of the world? If you want to talk about the EU or NATO or nuclear weapons and so on. Hello.
Hi, I'm Alison from Glasgow and I'm a student at the University of Strathclyde studying politics and history. My point to the SNP and the Yes vote is how can they want to be a member of NATO and not take on nuclear weapons? Also about the EU, what's the point in leaving one union and joining the other, which is also overpowering and tells you what you have to do?
On two things. In terms of our membership of NATO, that's a decision that the SNP want. I think Elaine's made the point that not everybody in the Yes campaign are in that position. But it's also about independence and how and most of our armed forces should be used for peacekeeping forces anyway. In relation to Europe, and I come back to this point, this is a choice of two futures. Now, we see our future in the European Union. We know that we'd have to have discussions and agreements with other governments. We've acknowledged that. But also, remember, David Cameron has said that the future for the UK, if the Tories get back in again, would be a referendum that could take the UK out of Europe. Now that's, again, an uncertainty. And all I'm saying is there are choices on both sides. Yeah. There are no certainties necessarily, and there are many certainties on both sides. So I think it's a choice of two futures. And in relation to Europe, I think in terms of our business interests, we heard earlier from a gentleman from the food and drink industry, a lot of our industries are export dependent and are very much the value of being able to export to other countries is really important. Okay. So that membership of the European Union is important. But remember, there may be uncertainties as much on the no side about where we are in Europe, and that's what concerns a lot of people I speak to when I travel.
Okay, I want to bring this gentleman in here
as to the future.
Sir,
of the European
you're
Union.
in the Yes camp, the Yes Scotland camp. Do you want to join NATO?
My name is Brian Quayle. I do not want to join NATO. And I was at the conference which passed the motion, and I opposed it, as many other people did too. But I want to say this. There's a lot of talk about economics this morning. One thing we do know with a Yes vote, we will not spend £100 billion on Trident, a criminal and illegal weapon of mass destruction.
And where will your nuclear weapons go?
All the UK's nuclear weapons are at Coalport, Fastlane. There is nowhere else in the UK they can operate from. That, believe you me, is a fact. So if Scotland says no to them, that is a nuclear-free UK, which many of us have been struggling for half a century. We are in the edge of grasping that fact. But it's a bit like the old Fawlty Towers scenario. Whatever you do, don't talk about the Germans. The low people, whatever you do, don't mention the T word.
Well, let's.
If you vote no, you're voting yes for Trident.
You said it as a fact that the nuclear weapons would have to stay at Fastlane and Coalport. Wouldn't, I mean, the S&P...
No, he said...
Sorry, I beg your pardon. They wouldn't have to. But you would have to negotiate with the government at Westminster to move them elsewhere.
I think that all that has happened really is that the SNP have taken a decision. What we have to realise here is, after a vote for independence, there would be an election in Scotland in 2016. So therefore, it may very well be Labour who are in power in Scotland. Who is to say that it will be the SNP that will be in power in 2016? And the difference here is that the decision about whether Trident stays in Coolport or whether we are a nuclear country will be taken by the people who live here, who are 45 minutes from a seat of weapons of mass destruction.
But it's also going to affect the people in the rest of the UK.
Yeah, and if people in the rest of the UK, which I totally agree with you, if people in the rest of the UK want to keep Trident, put it on the Thames. Put it there outside Parliament, and it can happen.
Okay. Hi, where are you from, sir? Where are you from?
My name is Sir Ken Axon, and I come from Wales.
Okay.
So
would you like nuclear weapons down the road from you?
Right, okay.
Yes or no?
I can clearly answer two things.
Yeah.
I might say yes, I might say no.
Okay.
And Fiona, I'm so grateful you set up this debate, and or you actually leading to this debate. But the most question is, nuclear weapons or nuclear submarines, or where they're going to go, stay in Scotland or come to Wales. We might take it, why not? But I think we've got a bigger issue here. Bigger issue here is all those money come from the working and hard-working family and taxpayers. Mm-hmm. Are they really educated about this subject? Are they really?
About nuclear weapons?
For all this subject. Because this is not only nuclear weapon or nuclear centrals. We might take in the Bahrain. We've got a big enough space there.
Okay. Well, certainly in Scotland, we've had to live with nuclear weapons on our doorsteps for a long time. So certainly here in Scotland, we're very aware of that. And in terms of NATO, only 3 out of the 28 members of NATO have nuclear weapons. And I don't think we should patronise people. Some people do feel very strongly in a moral way about nuclear weapons. If you look at the churches in Scotland, if you look at the wider opinion, there is a moral argument, and that has to be acknowledged as well. But I also think there's an economic argument. I don't think Trident is needed. I don't think it's relevant in the modern age, even in an international scale. And actually, going back to one of the earlier questions that came from one of the undecideds, we could be using that money even more effectively, even within the armed services, to make sure that we have the deployment of what we need for the modern age.
Okay. Whereabouts do you live?
I live just outside of London.
Okay. Would you like Trident on the Thames?
Yes, no, I wouldn't, obviously.
But it's all right for it to be. Sorry, excuse me, but it's all right to be in Faslane or Coolport, is it?
No, actually, I understand the concern.
Okay.
What I would like to point out is I don't have a government or a First Minister to express my concerns. Yeah. I don't have any voice on this. I have a British government. I'm voiceless as a person, as an English person. Now, one of the things I would like to say is, yes, if you have a separate country, you have a right to decide this. I know we've got the Welsh here. I mean, have they got a say in where actually nuclear weapons go?
The First Minister wants it to go to Wales, was my understanding.
Well, one of the concerns we have to make these decisions. I've been very disappointed about the debate today, because it's just been toing and froing on stating positions. I mean, everyone in the UK is entitled to know the facts of what's going on here. As an Englishman, I don't have a parliament, I don't have a manifesto, I have a TUC that represents Scotland and Wales, but not England. The English should have a voice.
Okay. There is somebody who's moved from the undecideds to the yes camp. Yes. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, do introduce yourself, sir.
Hello there. My name is Norrie, and I moved over purely on the basis that I have continually listened to the Labour, the Tory, the Lib Dems, Westminster Parliament, and you keep on getting the same results. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, you keep getting the same results. And if I'm looking for something different, I've got to move. It's insanity.
And you genuinely began in the undecided, and you genuinely were. Yeah.
And I decided to move over purely for the point of view that I think we should have a yes campaign, given the benefit of the doubt, because anything is better than what we have sitting over there.
My name's Jazz. I'm a 16-year-old student from Inverclyde, and I think we all want to see a bit of movement between the sections here. I want to shake things up a little bit. So if I may redirect the discussion ever so slightly.
Go for it.
currently, 1 in 5 children are living in poverty across the UK. And personally, I think that should be at the forefront of everybody's mind. That should be of the utmost importance. Now, if the Yes campaign can convince me that an independent Scotland would prove beneficial to these children, I will grab my jacket and I will sit there. But until then, I'm staying right here.
Okay. So who can help this lady here? Can you get a microphone? Can we get a microphone to this? Any second now.
Hi there. I totally agree with you. Listen, we've spoken about so many things today, and it's really wasted a lot of time. Scotland is stinking rich, okay? The money that we won't spend on nuclear weapons, that we won't spend on criminalising poor people, that we won't spend on invading foreign countries, will be spent to create a better society. I've got 4 children. This is crucial, absolutely crucial for me. It's crucial for so many who's trying to create a better society. Okay? It's actually, I've walked from the East End of Glasgow today. The child poverty rates in the East End of Glasgow is higher than the open-air prison camp that is the Gaza Strip. It's not 1 in 5 in the East End of Glasgow, it's 1 in 3, 1 in 2 almost. You know, we need to do something different, okay? We can't, it's the definition of madness, the gentleman says, we can't keep going on like this. And such a stark divide, because that's wealth and privilege. I've never seen such a stark divide. And you've got a lot of ordinary Scots over here who are going out their way. I canvassed the poorest part, the poorest constituency in the UK in Barrowfield, the poorest constituency in the UK is Shettleston, and we didn't have one no voter. Not one no voter, because we know we need to do something different, and we need to vote for independence.
Would you all say that thing that what needs to change is we need to become independent? Would you all agree that independence would help these children?
Yes.
Would you all agree that?
We're currently criminalising people for the crime of being poor, for the crime of being unemployed. We can't go on like that.
Will you have me on your section?
Yes.
So, she's moved.
Absolutely. We owe this to our children, to give our children a future. You asked for a Rammy today, Victoria, and I think it's been puerile, absolutely puerile. We've spent so much time going on about money. Scotland is stinking rich. It's what we do with that money that counts.
Victoria,
it's what we do with it.
Victoria, this is an important point on that.
Okay.
Victoria,
so earlier on, hang on a sec. Earlier on, we had a gentleman.
Victoria, just on that point.
Bear with me one sec. Welcome back to Views on the BBC News Channel. And we have the Undecideds, we have the Yes Camp, we have the Better Together campaign over here. We've had a bit of movement from the audience. We've invited them to move if their views change throughout the morning. And we've had movement to the No Camp. We've had movement, as you've just heard, from the Yes Camp. Over here, hello.
Hi, my name is Emily. I recently moved to Scotland from Australia. And for a while, I just felt I didn't really know enough about either country to make a decision. And I think, from what I've heard today, independence is definitely the right way to go.
I'm Harriet. I'm the Welsh woman again. I think what was just said was disgraceful. There are children in poverty in the south of England. There are children in poverty in the Welsh valleys. Cut yourself off from them and don't campaign for them. And the woman that's a trade unionist, the trade union movement, fantastic movement for workers. What about the workers in the south of England who can't stand the Westminster government? I have problems with the Westminster government, and so do many people in the south of England. People living in London have problems with the Westminster government.
Okay, hang on. There is no point talking over each other. Hang on. Lady over here, hello. It's you.
I'm Margaret Wilson, and I just feel it's been one-sided.
Go ahead.
That's all I'm going to say.
Victoria, just an important point about child poverty.
Yes.
An important point about child poverty is, look, don't take my word for it, don't take the SNP's word for it, don't take any politician's word for it. Why don't we look at the independent, non-political Joseph Rowntree Foundation, which has already said that all the powers to actually address child poverty already exist in the Scottish Parliament.
That's rubbish.
Around housing, around education, around health. Read the report, Fiona, I'm happy to send you. The Joseph Rowntree say, but sadly they say, and this is crucial, that we have a Scottish government that's obsessed with the referendum and not actually changing Scotland. So I passionately believe that we should reduce child poverty. I came into politics to fight poverty, not to fight about which politician had what power and what building. I want to reduce poverty. Crucially, I want to reduce poverty, not just in my own constituency in Glasgow, but across the rest of the United Kingdom and the rest of the world. And I passionately and genuinely believe we do that best by being part of the United Kingdom.
Hang on. We don't trust you to do it. That's the problem.
We've got some more movement of people.
We have
Clearly,
in the last Labour government.
We've got some more movement of people. Clearly, it's unscientific. That goes without saying. Hello. Hi.
Victoria, I wanted to answer our Welsh comrades. They make a very good point. But my socialism doesn't end in the East End of Glasgow, where I come from.
No, not
my socialism doesn't end in Newcastle or Liverpool. And you guys have deliberately mentioned Newcastle and Liverpool. Okay, but my socialism doesn't end in Dover. My socialism, we're trying to create a progressive beacon in Scotland. I'm in touch with a lot of people in the West, in England, who see us as something that's going to help them change England. Right?
Absolutely.
Can you
we can do something.
Sir, why would independence mean? Why would independence?
Victoria, because
why
we
would
are on the
independence
cusp.
mean that you were
We're on the
progressive?
cusp of doing something fantastic. Some of these guys are about changing flags. I'm about doing something. I'm about changing. There's a very famous Scottish Irishman called James Connolly says it's no point just changing the flags. We need to change a bit of the system as well. Okay, and that's what we're going to do next year, right? And what we can do is we can create a system and a beacon of progress that people down south can say, look what they're doing there, look how they're treating their people fairer, look how progressive that society is, and that will act as a springboard for them to argue and create a better society in England and hopefully elsewhere as well.
Let's give someone else a chance. Hang on.
My name's Katie, I'm 16 and I'm a school pupil. I'd just like to make a reference. Labour reduced child poverty by a third in 10 years between 1995 and 2005, and you didn't even mention it. You had time to speak and time to convince all of these people that you've done something to reduce child poverty, but you didn't, and that's the type of passion that we're going to see that's going to convince people to move over to the SNP. That's one of the reasons.
Can I ask?
One of the main reasons that I'm undecided, if you stood here and give me a solid argument, showing some passion, it goes back to identity. People believe themselves to be Scottish and they think that the SNP and the Yes campaign are showing some national pride. So far, we've had nothing from the union to show that we feel Scottish, that you want us to stay. And it's that lack of passion that's going to convince people to move over to the Yes campaign.
If our Better Together campaign is here today was slightly more passionate, you'd be in the No camp?
Absolutely.
You'd be in the Better Together camp?
Absolutely.
That's all it would take for you?
Labour's done so much good work for the country over the past decade, and I'm sure many people in the Yes.
Okay. All right.
They've reduced child poverty.
And can I ask you, do you feel like moving right now or not?
No, because I don't believe that I should go to Yes.
Can I just address that, Victoria? Can I just address that? Fair enough, I'm maybe not shouted and hissed, maybe like the other side, but I did say that Scotland, the last Labour government, have child poverty across the UK and have pensioner poverty right across the UK.
Well, that's not very well, but I watched your TV debate last week and it was the exact same problems. You and Nicola Sturgeon spent an hour and a half bickering over silly little issues. What you should have been doing is targeting people and showing them that it's best to stay in the union, be passionate about it, rather than trying to poke holes in the SNP's argument.
Okay, over here, hello.
Hello. I'm Peter Hutchinson. I'm from Northern Ireland originally. I live in Scotland, and to complicate matters, I own a business that's registered in England, which puts me in quite a difficult position. So identity-wise, I don't know where I'd fit into new
You're welcome
independent here. Scotland. But the main reason I'm on this side of the room is that having read the impartial or the limited impartial advice I can find, the bottom line to me is that we don't actually know what we're voting for, because negotiations are taking place after the vote. If you go into a shop and buy something, you know the price. If you go into business to do a business deal, you sit down and you negotiate a deal and you know what you're entering into. We have absolutely no idea what we're entering into. From my point of view, the Yes campaign are saying that their campaign, it's unfortunate that a major global sports brand have taken their ideal slogan, just do it. We really don't know what we're doing. And on that basis, I'm on this side of the room.
Okay. On that point, on our friend's point about we don't know the detail, will there be answers? How many answers will there be in that white paper in November?
It's whether the answers are sufficient is up to the people to judge, but there'll be a
Sorry, Brian. Was there movement here? We've gone from I'll come back to you, Brian. Okay, yeah. From the undecideds to the yeses. Hello? Tell us why you've moved.
Yeah.
What's made up your mind?
Well, they just seem to have a better argument that's for us. You know, free education, jobs, economic security, and that's really important for us because we're trying to get a future and we're not seeing one from that side, but we're seeing one here, which is what I really feel quite passionate about.
Is it utopia? You make it sound like utopia.
No.
Okay. Hang on, we've got some people who've moved to the Better Together, who prefer the United Kingdom to stay as the United Kingdom. Hello, sir. Hi.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark. I'm Irish. I've been living in Edinburgh for almost half my life. I'm very Irish, always have been, always will be. That will never change. The Yes campaign are doing absolutely nothing in this argument except being anti-English.
Oh,
People may disagree with that opinion, but all you're doing is picking on everything that's ever gone wrong.
Give him a chance. Let him speak, please. Go
Someone
ahead.
said it's worth dying for. I live in a country that's divided. Is it really worth dying for?
Oh, no.
Do you want to pass the microphone along? Because I think somebody else next to you has moved from the undecideds to the Better Together.
Hi, I'm Viola. I'm from Slovakia, and I live in Edinburgh for 1 year, so I really wasn't sure because I didn't feel I have right to have an opinion about independent Scotland. And from the beginning, I started to feel that Scotland should be independent, but Group Yes was pushing too much, and it didn't
switched you off
me at all. So that's the
Okay.
reason why I'm here, and I think that Scotland should be a part of Britain, like United Kingdom.
Can I just come back to Brian Taylor? The question about the detail in the white paper that will be published in November.
When the people of Scotland vote on September the 18th next year, they will be voting on the white paper. That is the prospectus for independence. Now, that is based upon 1997, when the Labour government advanced a white paper on devolution. People were voting then upon that prospectus. It then had to go through the House of Commons. But there is a difference, of course. In 1997, it was a Labour government advancing a white paper, and then the same Labour government was offering to steer that through the Commons and the Lords. They expected a tough ride, you know, in the event the momentum that was created by the yes vote in the referendum carried that forward and through both the Commons and the Lords. This is slightly different. It's different in that it would be a prospectus advanced by the Scottish Government, which they would then have to negotiate separately and following that with the UK Government. But it could be the case, I think, as the Yes camp would argue, that if there is a sufficient vote for yes, it would similarly have momentum. But our friend here is right. Of course, there would have to be negotiations. Yes. You're not voting for the final product. But just bear in mind, in 97, you weren't voting for the final product either, although I stress there is a very considerable difference between the two.
OK, I'm going to give everybody a last opportunity in the last few minutes of the programme. If you would like to move from your section, if you want to move, if you heard something that's potentially helped you make up your mind, or at least push you in a particular direction of travel, please do so now. Everybody's sorted. Everybody's sorted. OK. Can I ask you...
Yes.
Oh, you've moved... You're not as undecided as you were at 10 o'clock, but you're still a bit undecided. And she's moved in the direction of the yes camp. I don't know if that's...
I've got many seats left.
No, is that significant or not?
Well, I just feel, from my comrade over there, my sister, to be honest, my trade unions and socialist roots will never matter whether it's a yes campaign, yes or not. If it's a yes and we are divided and England needs some help, Scottish United Union will be down there like a flash to help them. I don't feel it's a divide like that. It's not a divide. It's more about being brothers and sisters like we are within the union. I need answers. I need strategic answers from my Labour government, my Labour card holders. People, we get you there. You don't give us any answers to anything. It's questions. Sure. There's nothing structured. And that worries me. It worries me a great deal that there is nothing structured from this side, whereas this side are giving me a structure.
But you still have not enough of a structure because you're still...
The white paper hasn't been released.
Fair enough. OK, all right.
Sorry.
Professor Curtis, can I ask you about potential turnout and how that might affect the result?
Well, I think one thing we're pretty clear on, you've heard the passion in this hall, and I think it's also very, very clear that the public out there in Scotland are also very engaged. One of the polling companies, Ipsos Mori, regularly in its British polls asked people how likely are you to vote in general election, or indeed in Scotland they ask how likely are you to vote in a Scottish primary election, and usually in those polls only around 50% of people say they're certain to vote. When the same question is asked about the referendum next year, we are regularly finding 70%, if not more, people saying they're certain to vote. So I think the first thing to say is that undoubtedly Scotland is engaged, people in Scotland think it's matter, and they're likely to vote. Given that's the case, therefore, it's going to be unlikely that differential turnout, i.e. more people on one side rather than another turning out to vote, is going to be crucial, because it looks as though most people in Scotland are going to avail themselves of the chance to have a choice as to whether their country becomes independent or not.
OK. Hello.
Hi, I would just like to say
that after years and years and years of the Scottish, very sadly, the sad Scottish mentality, my mammy and daddy voted Labour, my granny and granda voted Labour, I'm still going to vote Labour. People of Scotland, rise up and think for yourselves. And this is a vote for independence, for a future of Scotland, for your children, your grandchildren and their children.
I would say to you...
No, excuse me, sorry, just let this gentleman respond here.
I'm a 19-year-old student from Glasgow, and I'd just like to put this out that a lot of the, arguments from the Yes campaign are, we're Scottish more than British. Well, here's a bit of news. You're still from the island of Great Britain, even if Scotland votes yes. So this whole thing that, I'm Scottish more than British, you're British regardless. So nobody should base their argument on that.
Okay. Yes. Microphone here. Sorry, Alvin. Just gentleman with a microphone here. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Hi there. Jim from Glasgow again. I'm proud to be... This girl wanted emotion. I'm really proud to be Scottish and British. Very proud. I see no reason for this. We've had emotional rhetoric over here without any substance whatsoever. No, you can sit there. You said that. You were talking about intellect. I have yet to hear anything intellectual from the Yes campaign. I'm not getting at you individually. I'm getting at you in general. There's no figures. I wrote to Alex Salmond asking him a whole load of questions, everyone unanswered.
Okay, gentleman over here, hello.
My name's David and I am from Glasgow and I work in the whisky industry. It was strange, it was an hour and a half into the debate before the first person actually mentioned whisky. Before coming
and it had to be me, yeah.
Yes. I've got my hip flask, it's fine. But the one thing, I spoke to a number of people in the whisky industry and they want to know how either campaign will protect the Scotch whisky industry and ensure its continued growth globally.
Okay.
Post-referendum.
You've got 10 seconds, both Better Together and Yes Scotland. 10 seconds.
We've already done that as part of the Scottish Government. I was in China, in Beijing, with the First Minister when we were getting the origination.
5 seconds.
Scottish whisky could have it. So food and drink is one of our key industries, as is tourism, as is renewable energy, as is life science. We can be successful.
Better Together.
This referendum, the election 2015 and the election 2016 will all be about living standards. It's about how we create quality jobs. And that's why we make sure we have a living wage right across the UK. We make sure we end blacklisting right in Scotland and the rest across the UK, and also clamp down zero-hour contracts and make sure we have an economy that works for everyone, no matter where they live across the UK.
At 10 o'clock, we had 80 people in the yes, we had 80 people in the no, and we had 60 undecideds. At 1 minute to midday, we have yes 84, we have no 83, and undecideds 53. Clearly not scientific. Do give yourself a huge round of applause. Thank you.
On digital and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
bbc.co.uk/5live.